Come on in, we see you. Welcome back, everyone, to the Fine Global Summit. We're just going to get right into it in the interest of time. And to kick things off, I wanted to welcome Mr. Richard Wood, the Managing Director of Asia of Snøhetta. He is our first keynote speaker, toddling off from the back. Come on, man. Fine Global Summit on placemaking, the strategy and creativity of making places. His firm, Snøhetta, needs no introduction, and I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to leave it with you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. So, welcome, and thank you very much for having me here today. I will be talking a little bit today about a few things, but mainly about our work at Snøhetta. Snøhetta is a Norwegian-originated company. We are a design office. We are not just an architecture office. This is the top of Snøhetta. This is also Snøhetta in the background there on a rather cloudy day. And today I'll be talking a little bit about our projects with the ideas of time, place, and people. Today, we do not want to be designing buildings that are alien in their context. We want to be designing buildings that really sit well within their place. And at Snøhetta, that's definitely what we try and aim to do. Today, we have 9 offices globally. I sit here in Hong Kong. We also have an office in Shenzhen now that we opened in May last year. And we work very collectively together across all the different offices. But the point is that we are local, we are here, we are in Asia, and we are designing for the context with the people, with the understanding of that. This is all of us about 4 weeks ago now on the mountain. In the background there is Snøhetta. It doesn't often look like that. Usually it has a lot more mist and clouds on it and looks a lot more menacing. But we're all here together, talking, walking, and getting up the mountain. Usually it's a bit more difficult. 5 weeks ago it was quite easy because it was quite a nice day. But the idea is that we come together, we talk, we discuss what we're going to do for the next 5 years, for the next 2 years, sorry, and we discuss what we've been up to for the last 2 years. It's an idea of working together. This is a bit pixelated, but if you look closely, you might see me having a rather nice time on the mountain with my colleagues. We started about 37 years ago with a project called the Alexandria Library, bit of a fairy tale project, bit of a historic settling project that was almost an archaeology of its time, burnt down in the early days, but then rebuilt by us 37 years ago. It's a project that is a library, but it's very much so a center of the community itself. But it's a project that was almost set out to create a community around itself, set out to develop certain things for the community rather than just designing a one-off alien building, really trying to design something for the situation it's in. There was various ideas that came into designing the building. One of those was to create a school for the stonemasons that were then, and still exists today, to this day. But really, at the same time that we started the office about 37 years ago, this lady, a lady called Gro Brundtland, was the Prime Minister of Norway. And the UN Council at the time asked her to, or commissioned her to develop a report. The report was called Our Common Future. And it was basically a call to arms at sustainability at the time. Sustainability at that time was kind of coming out, people kind of, okay, what's this problem that we've got to deal with? And she wrote the report and said, okay, this is something that we can't deal with separately. We have to deal with this together. We have to deal with this as one. Countries, we have to come together geographically, but also we have to come together as different disciplines. So we took that many, many years ago to mean that we need to develop an idea of a collective. We're not then just architects. We had landscape and interior from the very start, and today we're graphic, digital, product, and art. We work in this idea of a collective intuition, which means that at the start of all the projects, we try and come together with our clients, with our collaborators, to develop an understanding of what it is that we're trying to do. Because ultimately, it's not working to get a brief, to go away, to sketch something on a piece of paper. Is this it? No. We try and develop an idea of coming together so that when the final thing is built, it's not just us that have designed it, it's actually the collective. We also come up with a thing called transpositioning. Now, transpositioning is an idea whereby I can take my architecture hat off and put on my client hat sometimes, or my product design hat. It rids me of the shackles of my profession to some degree. It rids me of the ridicule that I might face if I say something stupid. Sometimes we need to make mistakes, and sometimes we need to develop those and iterate on those ideas. To the point that sometimes we look a little bit like this. If you meet us on a dark night, then we sometimes look a bit scary. But the whole idea is that we come together as a patchwork of individuals to create a better whole. So today I'll be talking primarily about places for people. Places are designed for the people that are within them. They're not accidents. They are the culmination of a lot of different discussions, a lot of different ideas, and a lot of understandings around the place. I start with our slightly later project from the Alexandria Library, the Oslo Opera. Many might know. It's quite a famous project now, designed, or rather finished, about 15 years ago. But it's really a place that's colored by the people that are within it. It's a place that's designed for free roaming. It's not designed necessarily as an iconic building. It's designed as a landscape that people can go up and onto. The opera itself being a kind of almost mistake in the middle of this building, and the actual main part of the building itself being the public square that sits and ramps up from the roof. You can go there, you can be seen there, you can go there and wear your green dresses, you can wear your pink dresses. But the point is, it's a place where you can go, and the white backdrop showcases the life that's within it. All ages go there. You can find places in this where you can hide. This is definitely not an opera house for these kids. And this is the entranceway, but for these guys, it's not necessarily the entranceway. There's places to play. Similarly, in our pedestrianization of Times Square, it's really a project that almost you can't see. It's almost an invisible project because of the amount of people that now go onto it. Actually, it's a place for people. It's a carpet. It's a central space. It's almost not a project itself. It's a removal of things. I'll come on to that in a little bit of time. Our project, again, in Swarovski, in Austria, it's a beautiful object in itself, but really the key is to create a space where people can play, people can come together, and people can have fun. Sometimes not just the kids. And in Alexandria, we really try to create a sense of ownership to our projects for the people that are there. This is a recent visit that some of the guys made recently, and looking at the models and the way that the building has become part of the situation which it's in. And quite a while ago now, in 2011, at the Arab Springs, the building was protected during the riots, really showcasing an idea of collective ownership in the city for the building. We try and create a sense of shared perception in our projects as well. So as we walk down the Oslo Opera, you walk down the slope and you together have this sense of the horizon as you look out onto the fjord. You are with each other, and as you walk up the building, again, in the same way that we walk up the mountain in Snøhetta, you have an activity and you're sharing it with one another. You sit there, you walk, you talk, you may even fly if you run quick enough. This idea is also kind of transcended from the idea of horizon from Alexandria Library, where the actual plane of the building itself enters the actual surface of the space, going from future, present to past as it enters the ground and the water in front. It's really a building that is owned by the people, and you enter on the side. Was the largest reading room in the world as you sit there and look over the view in the library. A project I'll show in a minute as well is our Horizon project for Art Basel, where we really wanted to compress the space and bring people into a central space for coming together in the activity and looking at the artwork. And here you can see, you may even see me here if you look closely enough, the reflection of the people coming together under one roof, under one reflective surface. We try and put people at the forefront of what we do. Are you a spectator in a building? Are you a spectacle? Basically, you are the event itself. And this lady is here at the front of the lobby for the Oslo Opera House. Is she the spectator or is she the spectacle? Certainly here, a very loaded project at 9/11 Memorial Pavilion, one that involved a lot of different connotations and a lot of different collaborative work, and a complexity that we were very much so involved in. How do you showcase something like the 9/11 Memorial? And really, it was about putting people at the forefront. So as people look into the museum, they in turn become the spectacle, the spectator and the spectacle itself. And this girl certainly also the spectacle. I want to talk today about placemaking. The idea that placemaking done badly can be really disastrous for cities. We're in a city here where thankfully placemaking is done very, very well, and is kind of owned by the people that live here. But placemaking done really, really well becomes invisible over time. Certainly, quite literally, the place has become invisible at Times Square because of the amount of people that use that space in Manhattan. And also here at the Norwegian Opera, when you don't get a ticket for the inside of the opera, they showcase the performance on the outside, and it looks a little bit like this, literally making the building invisible. And again here in Times Square with the yoga that is often shown there, or enjoyed there rather. And here, quite literally though, the building, Times Square is becoming almost invisible to the city itself. That line between the project, the existing, and the new is blurring itself. And I think that's when placemaking becomes very successful, when actually it doesn't really exist. Placemaking itself is just place, it's just existing. But the idea of coming together, the idea of creating a surface for people is also really important. Here on the Oslo Opera, we made the surface out of a rich white Carrara marble, so it showcases the colors that you saw earlier. It's a very white surface. It's actually commissioned as a separate artwork that we then worked on. Making spaces for people, fragmenting the stone itself, so you have to navigate this space with a little bit of caution and a little bit of an experience. So more on the opera now. It's really a space where you come and you walk up. It's the idea of the free space, the free roaming culture of Norway that is very, very dear to the Norwegian people. And here you might go to sit, to dodge the seagulls if you're not lucky enough, or you might go inside to the opera itself being an acoustic instrument, a very well crafted piece of work, a sense of illusion that you see in the curtain here at the front. Working with Pay White, who's an American textile artist, we developed this as a collaboration between many different artists in our company. And you actually get this is actually just a 2D piece of fabric that is on the stage. But fundamentally outside, it's about the people. So this was a building that was designed 15 years ago. So let's go back and see what the people have to say about our project.
I'm here, I will say a couple of times per week actually, and I've never actually been to the opera before, but for me it's like a really nice place to just hang out and relax. It's you can say it's a meeting point often where I hang out with friends and just relaxing in the weather and looking at the sea. So it's part of the city scene, kind of, yeah.
So this guy goes to the opera twice a week, but has never actually been to the opera. I think that's great. It's really become a public square, a public space for people of the city. It's by accident, it's an opera. It's really a place for lots of color. Doesn't always look as sunny as this in Norway, as the people that have been there maybe know. But sometimes it does.
First of all, to feel free and see around the Oslo and the beautiful colors, because Oslo is a very busy city, so you can't see like the nature. So opera, when I'm sitting here, I can see the sea and the trees in the house, so to feel free.
She feels free. I think this idea that's very important is that public buildings are owned and taken in by the people that are there for, which is the public. And certainly at Oslo, I think we've managed that. We didn't only ask people that said nice things about our buildings, by the way, but we did get a lot of nice things. You go here, you feed the swans on a nice day, you go fishing, you jump in the water for the very few months of the year when it's possible. Most of the time it looks a bit like this and you can go skiing. But in Times Square as well, just more on Times Square, it's really a project that is about the surface. It's about the removal of something, the removal of cars, the pedestrianization of a space that's otherwise given over to traffic. But it's really just a treatment of a surface in a very busy city like Manhattan, giving over what is wants for taxis and cars to the people. It's almost a profound experience that you must now have as you drive through that space, as you used to drive through that space, and now you walk there and you even do yoga. We developed the surface itself and the treatment. The project itself was really about coming together to talk to all the people that would use the space and understand what was the best ideas for the Times Square space. And we developed these super furnitures that are effectively large chairs or stages for life. You go there, you sit, you look at the surroundings, you take some photos. Today, it's used by the many different people of Manhattan. And again, I think it's really become an integral part of the city and almost invisible as a new piece of architecture, especially on a day like the New Year, where you really can't see anything. Similar to Oslo, actually, they showcase some of the operas that are there in Carnegie Hall. They showcase the the performances when people can't get the tickets. And it's really 5 blocks where we've basically been able to remove the cars, talking to all the individual shop owners of all the different places is to try and work out what would be the best thing to do. And the amount of people, the old people who live there, the young people, not only just people. But really this project itself has had so much benefit for the city. There's been a reduction in crime. There's been a reduction, obviously, in the traffic incidents, but also there's been a huge increase in the amount of tax that they've been able to get through the retail properties around there. 300% increase, which has actually paid for 7 times the park and recreation facilities budgets for the city for the last 7 years. We've done a similar project during COVID in Shanghai, Nanjing Road, which is the famous shopping road, which is adjacent to Bund on the Puxi side of Shanghai. Here, we took a busy street that used to be full of trams, full of cars, full of people, of course, but a very dangerous part to shop if you are rushing across the street. And we pedestrianize it, part of the large pedestrianization efforts that have been going on along the whole of the Bund. But we wanted to give the space a sense of what it used to be, developing fast and also slow zones of what used to be there. We took the tram lines, the old tram lines, and said, okay, these guys need to be fast zones still. We won't plant those too much, but we will actually create event spaces in the leftover spaces, in the slow zones. This is what it used to look like, and today you're very free to roam amongst this space. Here we created furnitures that were a little bit smaller, more intimate in their scale, to work with the trees. So we put these in between the trees and the slow zones, in between the otherwise busy city for shopping. I talk a little bit more about our project for Horizon last year, mainly because Yoko was there, who was very, very thankfully invited me to talk today. But it was really a place that we wanted to represent Hong Kong in the close proximity to the Victoria Harbour. It's a space where we wanted to compress 2 horizons into one, bringing people into one space to have a shared experience. This is the finished piece. You see this reflector above that really reflects the life and the activities below, the below being a multi-purpose auditorium for talks and for the lively events that happen during that week. And we'll be reusing this piece with Swire, who are the clients for this, Swire Properties, who commissioned it in various other properties that they have dotted around the region. This was it on the opening day. You see the skyline of Hong Kong in the background, and reflected above is the people that are then sharing that space. We like to think of our work as having conviction over fiction. Excuse the rhyming. I will talk a little bit now about some of our other projects. I talked about our project down in Australia at Harbourside. Harbourside is this project here. It's a residential project with a large podium below. The podium is retail space, but also a lot of landscape. And I think this is really a project that showcases the link that we have with our landscape designers in the office coming together to create one whole project. But really for this project, we wanted to go back. Australia at the moment is really looking back to their First Nations, the first founding peoples of their country. We wanted to reflect that in the design. So we went back and we looked at the landscape. How did the landscape of this very urban now setting look in the past? Sydney itself used to be obviously a very rural destination, later becoming an industrial hub with lots of different deliveries for ships, and now what it is today as the famous Sydney Harbour. So we went back and we looked at what this might mean to the people that would use this building, creating a landscape, creating a building that people could inhabit, turning back the clock a little bit on what was there. We looked at the sandstone escarpments that Sydney is quite famous for, used to be famous for, but now not in the centre. And we tried to create a building that would reflect these incredibly beautiful, almost Jupiter marble-like sandstone ridges. We created a building that is basically a podium, a landscape, that is as much about the landscape experience itself as it is about the building inside. You can walk here, you can walk along the harbour, you can walk up into the crevices itself, and you can have an experience on the top. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of spaces to go and mingle and be in the city. Here along the harbour, you can walk and you can get right the way down, but also you can walk outside right up onto the top of the building where the residences begin. Some spaces that look almost like a jungle with some of the buildings behind. The Tea House is another of our projects down in Melbourne that really looks at giving a sense of space. The Tea House itself is the old Rober Tea House in the center here, which is an old building, but has sort of since become a bit lost in its context. It used to be where they brought the tea in from the docks. and later was used and almost repurposed in many, many different ways, but recently has been sort of a bit lost in its context as these big buildings and the large conference center at the back there has been made. So we really try to work, how can we develop an architecture that still pays homage to the tea house, but gives the project the scale that is needed. So we work with this idea of clustering, this idea that the tea house is one of many, a little bit like the components of our office. We work with this idea, the tea house being at the center of this, but really trying to develop a series of other buildings around it that center the tea house in a development. The building is a hotel at the back and an office at the side, so a mixed-use building, but really putting the tea house at the center of the space. This is at the back here. We used the terracotta panels that were similar to the brickwork in the tea house, paying homage to the original building itself. And here at the lobby space of the hotel, where you walk through and you see the building in full glory, showcasing. And at the back there, the Melbourne skyline. We also like to think about our buildings as being credible rather than just incredible, working with the people, working with the development to create something which really sits well in the environment. This is a building that we recently finished for the Sami Nationals up in the very north of Norway, a very different context to the one we sit into today. It's called Korvamatta, and I'll come on to that in a minute and why it's called that, but it's really a building in this quite amazing landscape. It's the coming together of a lot of the different Sami institutions, the theatre, a school, a reindeer herding facility, to make a building that is basically taking what would otherwise be done in the landscape into a central hub and a public space for the Samis. To make this building, we went up there. We needed to understand how these people live up in the north of Norway, but they are actually free to roam across Sweden, Finland, and Russia as well. And there are peoples that live off the reindeer. Back in the day when there wasn't much else other than reindeers, they had to learn how to go through the deep winter nights with only the reindeer to survive on. They've become accustomed to using everything from the reindeer and using everything from nature to survive. So we went up there. I did not. I've been in Asia too long, I think. But the guys who are working in Norway have been down there now, have been up there, spent some time there, learned what it was to ride a reindeer, learned what it was to lasso a reindeer and live in the lavu, which is this tent over on the right-hand side there. And also learned what it means to not buy commercial boots from the high street, because actually the Sami boots are more insulative in this environment. Actually, some of their traditional ways are much better than what we have today. And also, I won't leave this on too long, but that's an example of how to live properly with the reindeer in this environment. And obviously, it looks a lot more bleak than this at some points as well. So it's really an institution that brings 3 different buildings together under one roof. The first one is the craft center and the reindeer herding facility over there. The second one is the school. And the third is the theatre. And they all come together in the center of this community heart, which is almost a coming together of this, like the lavos, the tent, the center, the heart of the community. It's quite a special project in that we really went into working with many different people from the Sami culture. We worked with the artists also on this project, and obviously the client themselves, who were very vested in this being a success. But the artists themselves said that this should be a project which reflects the reindeer. And so the free bringing together of programs was then reflecting this idea of the root of the reindeer horn. The Korvamatta is what it's called. And that really reflected then the exact proportions and the bringing together of the culture. This at the center becomes the heart of the community, the little amphitheater that then extends down into the theater itself, and then the reindeer pavilion, the reindeer treatment center here, and the craft facilities, and the school on the other side. It's really a project which takes a lot of the local environment as well, in that we use the timber, we use the ideas of the craft and the building to create the central space. And then here you see the sweeping of the roof almost emerging from the landscape, reflecting almost the doors of the lavos, which is the old tent. And here you see again as the entrance gesture that is formed as a tent door. And then this array of local ore pine that then forms the roof. We also used the lavos and the idea of this heated center where people go in the color scheme for the building. So this idea of the wood and this idea of the rich orange glow as you put a fire in this building as opposed to the cool exterior was also used in some of the treatment of the materials. And then the rich red of the theater then gave way to the bluer colors on the outside, creating a sense of space. This is the opening not that long ago now, only a few weeks ago, when instead of doing the ribbon cut that we saw not so long ago for this conference, we actually brought together the ribbons in a symbolism of the bringing together of the Sami people. And I'll leave you just with a quick video. Sorry, I won't leave you. I've got more to say. But this is a quick video of more the people that now use this space. As I said earlier, buildings, when they're designed, really need to become part of the landscape that they're in. And the Sami culture and the landscape is definitely second to none in that there's something there to really be had and to be found. I'll talk a little bit more about some of our projects that we also work with the landscape and nature in a very empirical way. Our powerhouse projects, we really like to think of as being informed rather than being formal. Projects that are in the north of Norway. This is our project in Trondheim, which is an office building that basically is energy positive over its life course, which means that it creates more energy than is used to build it. This is the same for a project here in Telemark that is, again, an energy positive building over the course of its life. But more recently, we've developed this building, the vertical building in north of Oslo called in Nederland. It's a project that's very much so sculpted by the winds that are incident on the building itself to create a 000 building, meaning there's no energy needed at all for heating, cooling, and passive ventilation. The way that we do that is by looking at, is that going to start? Yeah, by looking at the winds that can be incident to the building and then shaping the building in a way that creates the eddies and enforces more wind around the building itself. We then allow for slats in the windows that you can see here above to then open as we draw the wind into the building itself, that then actually responds through computers to the different places where people are sat, the different heating that is then within the office spaces and the residences above, sorry. Different valves are then used through AI to basically temper the environment dependent on what people set into the settings. So it is very user-friendly. And then we use clay in the walls to basically hold the heat longer than would otherwise be possible. Obviously, in this context, in this climate here in Singapore, then we would use very different techniques. But in Oslo, this is very important to temper the environment and to keep the heat in the building. So you get that slow release of heat from the clay. It's a building that is basically pared back. So the interior design itself that we also did is also very minimal to reduce the amount of energy needed. But then in the building itself, we use this clay. This is inside the walls, giving out the heat through the colder days. In Bampo, in Seoul now, so moving now to Asia, a building that also tries to work with the environment itself, creating a space that gives a way for nature, but also gives a place for people. This is a competition project that we made bridging the Bampo residential district in the north there with the Hangang River. And for this project, we really wanted to give as much space as we could away to nature, to the flooding that now happens quite often in Seoul. There's a disappearance, there has been disappearance in the floodplains and waterways over the course of time in Seoul, meaning that they now have quite drastic floods. And so we've been doing some research there for the last few years into how to basically turn back the clock on putting more waterways into Seoul. So we really wanted to use this project and showcase the ability to not only reach out and create a connector across the busy road, but disconnected the residential space with the Hangang River itself, but also create a space here for floodplains and for ecological learning for the people that would live there. So we looked again at what the Hangang used to be used for, and it used to be used for recreation and for play. And so we wanted to create a bridge that was a play area, a play space for the residents that would live there. Giving over on the right here, you see the nature garden, the learning space that could also be flooded in times of a lot of water, and then the bridging architecture that leads people over in this sinuous yellow pathway. Spaces in the middle, a platform for life, a platform for people to have an activity, to have an event, but also leading down to the Hangang itself, linking up with the festivity spaces that you see in the north there. It's a project that we tried to litter a lot of different functions on: seasonal courtyards, water-friendly platforms, and wetland education spaces for the people and the children that would use the bridge. And here it also bridges with cultural learning facilities hidden amongst this bridge deck. Also below, you see here, you can sweep up through this forest of pillars that almost disappears with the landscape that's there in front. Sadly, I don't think we'll get to build this one, so showcased here today. And also in this idea of trees, we last year opened the Beijing City Library, a landscape for people really trying to put the library back into its context of where it should rightly be. A library is itself, as a program, has been sort of forgotten of late, I think, in the recent history. People haven't been frequenting libraries as much. People might have been going to the concert halls, but not necessarily the libraries. We really wanted, with this building, which was for the new city center of Beijing, or the new sub-center of Beijing, really wanted to put the library back on the map. Created a reading room that is actually now the largest reading room in the world. It's beaten our previous record of the Alexandria Library. The Guinness guys have been down and they've said, okay, this is now the biggest one in the world. And it's really a space where you can go, find a book, be amongst the trees, taking the inspiration from the millennia-old native ginkgo tree for the roofscape itself, allowing light through into this very large valley, which runs through the center of the building, and really guiding people through the space and encouraging people to then find a space, take a book, and read. Not only looking here, but also looking long-sighted at the view of all these people coming together in this artificial valley. I'll talk a little bit now about our upcoming project. I'm seeing the time. About our upcoming project in Cloud 11, in Bangkok, sorry. Down in the south of Bangkok, near True Digital Park, for our client, MQDC. It's a huge building, 300,000 square meters, almost a city in itself. We really wanted to use this as a way of creating another nature inside an otherwise polluted city. The actual city itself in Bangkok is quite interesting, and the planning has been quite organic through the old agrarian landscapes that used to be. This is a photo taken actually just on the outside of Bangkok. In the center, you can see these long linear sites that have then came from the planning as the city has grown out over time. And so what you have now is these very, very long sites. And an otherwise peculiar way of dealing with a site, which is a courtyard, is what we have chosen to do here. We have put the buildings around the side, creating this inner sanctum, this inner garden space. And then building on top of this very large platform with an urbanism that could only actually make sense in Bangkok, as you see the low-lying city around it and the BTS which runs adjacent to the front of the site. We then create this very large garden which steps up, creating a space inside the building itself for people. We worked with the local community to try and find out what would be the right thing for this building, and it was to create a space for calm, for plants, for the lots of different natural flora that would exist in the site as you walk up from the BTS into this inner space, creating a space for activities for the people. And here you see that we are actually taking and using this space also to capture the water that is then used in the building, so giving back also to the building itself. Creating an inner space which cleans the air through the use of mist and water, and through the use of the plants, sticky plants that can actually help to reduce the pollution. This large space then looking at capturing different environments for different people and different usages, making lots of little enclaves where people can gather, people from the office, people from the retail below, merging them into this platform for life. These are photos, actually these are not so recent photos, but these are photos from a while back, but I put these in because I wanted to show you the waterway that sits at the bottom there. And we've actually been cleaning that waterway as a part of making a space, making a place for the people to walk along this, what used to be a very polluted waterway. We've dug a hole down into the waterway, we're pumping the water back up, and that will now be a very clean space for the community around. More recently, or rather last year, we opened Airside. For those that know Hong Kong and used to fly into Hong Kong, this is at the Kai Tak old airport, which you used to fly into very close to the old buildings. But more recently, they've been developing this as a new part of the city. So we were one of the first buildings to be built on this new part of Hong Kong. And we really wanted to make a building that would become sort of a signifier for this newness, for this new energy that was about to spring in the area. We moved the tower itself, a very large tower, 200,000 square meters of office, to the very corner point, creating a destination. And then we broke up the building so that people could feel like they could permeate into the building itself, getting in amongst these buildings and then creating a heart at the center. You see here then, it's a little bit similar to a tea house, and it's made up of lots of different components. Office at the back, the retail at the base, and most importantly, the second use of the floor space in the gardens that are above. We introduced also community gardens and allotments that people could go to and plant their vegetables, so that straight away from day one, people could go there and make this a space in their city. And it's slowly becoming, I think, a local place to be. The cuts in the facade here lining up with the avenues of the surrounding retail residences. And the cuts in the top of the building signifying the gateway to the new area. We worked with Nanfeng, who are an ex-textiles manufacturer, and we worked with them to really develop a sense of what would be their heritage for this building that it was in the showcase for their company, and also using that to then create a whole of the project, not just creating different parts, the retail, the office above, but really binding this into a destination. The fabric then becoming a very important part of the facade itself, and the weft of the wharf here you see in the fabric manufacturing then becoming this upside down chandelier, and inside this large chandelier that then is exhibited throughout the entire office lobby space, bridging the retail space with the office. So even the office entrance doesn't necessarily feel like an office space where people cannot go. It is open on all sides to the community. And then bringing in artwork in the various locations. Here in the center, which is basically the coming together of all these different blocks, is the retail space. And really against this idea of the traditional retail that you see in these long sort of walkways where people can walk up and down, but not necessarily integrate as one, we wanted to create a community. So here you can go and you can walk around and you can really see everyone when you walk around. These different platforms where you exist and see, and you wave to people as you walk around. But also working again here with this idea of fabric on the balustrade front, this time in actual fabric, working with Miniwiz in Taiwan to develop a recycled plastic material from plastic cups. This is the opening ceremony in the middle, and you can really see how people start to congregate around this space as an amphitheater. But most importantly, as I said, is the rooftop. It's really used now by a lot of people that go and visit there at weekends just to get a bit of space. There's a bit of a breeze up here some days in Hong Kong, and you can go up here with your family and you can get a drink here, and you can sit there without necessarily having to buy anything. I love this image because you wouldn't necessarily know here that you were on top of a very large commercial building overlooking Hong Kong. Actually, it's become a bit of a problem now because there's so many dogs that go to this site that they've had to make dog-owned elevators and dog-owned lifts, and we've also had to replace the grass because of that. So it's been very successful. And the hill here that you can go and sit and look over, take your coffee, and the gardens below that connect out to the city. We're also working in Shibuya, another commercial project, but the tower adjacent, the very famous Shibuya Scramble Square. It's actually in Shibuya. It's not that close to Mount Fuji, but if you take a telephoto lens, you can get that photo. But it's really a project that takes the energy of what is the Scramble Square here and tries to pull it into the building. You see the large mast then sort of sitting and adjacent to Shibuya Bunkamoridori, which is this road here. And it's sort of sitting between what is Shoto and the Shibuya Square and sort of bridging that gap between the different dualities of quite a polycentric city like Tokyo. Moving up, creating these gardens, and then lifting up to the sky. So we reach out horizontally to the city. We reach up to stretch up to make a landmark. It's for Tokyu Corporation. It's 120 years of their corporation, so it's celebrating their also organization. But then really it's about harnessing that and embracing that inner energy. So we create a gateway at the base in the retail space. It then sits adjacent this, which is a Yumeji-dori, which is some of the other little streets that sit adjacent the building. We try and create a space that encapsulates the people, allowing people then to permeate out onto the gardens above. The facade itself being a device that is as much about solar shading as it is about showcasing Japanese heritage, and that it's made of porcelain. It's effectively a book, which is then solid at the retail base where you have the otherwise gateway that opens up and then closes as you can move up to the top, creating 2 solar shading devices per floor. So a very solar shaded building, an environmental building. Here on the roof, you will have the hotel component, which sits above there, will spill down onto these spa gardens. And then the actual culture, this is the Bunkamora Theatre, which also bleeds into the building. On the 6th floor, we will have an exhibition space that links into the Bunkamora Theatre, but then also links up to the terrace gardens that will become sculpture gardens that link up again with the hotel. So creating this very fluid way of moving around the building. I want to show this project because I think it sort of culminates a little bit as this idea of free space for people. Ryerson is a project that we made quite a while ago now in 2019, or finished in 2019. But it's really about creating a free roaming space, but within a building this time. It's a space that wraps and contorts as it moves up the building, but really starts with this gesture towards the city, this blue corner in the city, and the steps. And from here, these steps wind their way up the building, creating lots of different spaces for students that you'll see in a moment. The blue being the gesture on the corner, inviting you in as a student to learn. The stairs then continue becoming this auditorium space, this amphitheater space where you can find anywhere you want to sit, read, and learn. It's a building with very little program apart from spaces to sit. And then up here, up the building itself, we characterize that with different characters: the bluff, the garden, the sun, the beach, the forest, and the sky. This is the forest space. My favorite is the beach, where you can go and sit. You can either find a space by yourself or you can find a space together, but the point is you're in a collective environment learning in any which way you want. I'll talk finally about 2 other projects that are up and coming. We've been very lucky to work recently in a place called Oslo with a company called Bond, who are really about bringing the lots of different stakeholders in this amazing place in Japan together to create something, to revitalize the area. Japan has a huge influx of tourism at the moment, but it's not necessarily getting into the right areas, or it's not necessarily getting everywhere. So we've been working in Aso, in Kyushu, in the South Island of Japan, to bring that and to imagine ways that we could help. So we're looking at the environment itself. It's actually Japan's largest volcano, and it's still active, so you have to pick your right time to go. But we really wanted to understand this landscape as a whole, a caldera rim and then the volcano in the middle, and also the perceptions of this through time. This is an old map that was drawn by a guy called Robert Anderson back in the day as he perceived the space. You can see here that the difference between the reality and the perceivance of space is not necessarily the same. So as you're a tourist, as you go to a space, how do you imagine using this space? How do you imagine visiting, and what do you want to get out of it? We looked at the amazing landscape that you have here, the volcanic ash, and the incredible landscapes that basically need to be untouched and have been recently, unfortunately, developed in a little bit unsustainable ways. We looked at the idea of the scale of the space as well, the idea of these pockets of the rock moving into the bigger volcanic spaces, and then the smaller human spaces. How can you develop a human scale to this otherwise incredible landscape? We went there, we experienced the nature at different times of the year. It's a space that has, it's an agrarian landscape, although it doesn't look like it, but you go there and then it's burnt off through different times of the year. The landscape is changed through the use of the cows and the use of burning off the landscape. So sometimes it looks like this, and you go back and it changes to this amazing rich red and orange. We went there, we understood the locals, we understood how people use this landscape, and the farmers with the horses, the real locals, the most important locals that we found there, and the cows. Don't ask me why they're both E, I don't know, but they are. Maybe they're owned by the same people. But we then took the actual material itself, we didn't steal it, we actually bought it, but then we used this to make models to understand what it would mean to then exist within this space at different scales. Looking at flipping, framing, lifting the landscape, We wanted to create an architecture that wasn't going to necessarily be too dominant on the landscape, but an architecture that also wasn't going to be creating too much pain by digging up the landscape. So we tried to mediate that with our sketching and understanding, going back there. Then we've come up with sketches that are actually just sketches today and are waiting to be developed further when they get different programs. But we develop ways of working with the landscape in between the different natures and the different landscapes and the different uses of the landscape. This is a spa itself. As you fold up the landscape to make the spaces underneath it, and you see here just one piece of signifier on top there, which is the fire in the middle. And the rooms that then sit within this, looking over this amazing central volcano. Then this, which is basically a habitat, which is in another site, where you create almost like a burrow for people in the environment. It changes throughout the year, as you then see the glow at different times of the day. It's quite a cute little volcano here, and we created this. We didn't want it to be too imposing on the site itself. Creating different rooms that would then work with the different produce that they make within the area, the different uses of the cow and the horse, and then also turning back the clock. So this is an old current car park. We wanted to turn back the idea of this and heal the landscape in this site. Here you can see the canopy that we then use to mask what is otherwise a very concrete blip in the landscape they've made. And then finally, nearer the crater rim, we developed an architecture that could become a tourist destination center and a learning facility, and also an emergency response space when the volcano decides to be active. Making cafes that sit into the rock, work with the rock, and give people a sense of the place itself, attracting people in a very sustainable way back to this region. I'll finish with this. I'm aware I'm out of time, but I'll finish with this, which is some images from our up-and-coming project in Shanghai. We're very, very excited about this project, which is taking the cue from some of the original ideas we had with the Oslo Opera. The idea of moving up the landscape to create a place for people and then tucking the building beneath it, creating a space where you can go when you don't necessarily just have to go to the opera, but you can actually go just to sit there and look over the skyline of Shanghai. But in this, we also use the fan, the Chinese fan here, and we use that landscape twice. So we use it on the surface, but we also use it as you then move down through the space and walk from up the space. Is this going to work? Yeah, so you can walk up around the landscape, then you can walk down the center, which is a more shaded route, and then sort of encompasses the inner bits of the building. Again, the large roof being white itself to showcase the life that will eventually sit within it. It's part of the development of the wider Expo Park. So we're surrounded by a lot of cultural friends, and we've been able to open up the entire front of the opera right out onto the landscape at the front as well. Here, the underside of the large roof that you'll move down as you enter the opera. We visited the site there the other day. You may be able to see who's the architects here, all wearing black. But this is about the scale of the building itself. Quite a large project. And then the gesture itself being located to the community as well, as you see it from a close distance or very far away from the other side of Huangpu River. Then the inside, the 2,000-seat auditorium, 1,200-seat auditorium, and then the 1,000-seat black box, which also is sitting adjacent to the landscape, so you can open this all up, moving people also directly into the theater. So we're looking forward to this very much so. We're going to on the right day to see this when the light hits it just right. And that's me. Thank you.
Richard, wow. Big word, wow. It is really inspirational. I think the impact on people's daily lives is stunning. Very proud.
Thank you.
I think we're out of time on this one for Q&A, but I want to sneak a quick one.
Okay.
One quick one in
Okay,
for you.
surprise question.
What
sure.
would you give as an answer to a young, aspiring, emerging placemaker? What should they do? Where should they go? What should they look at as an emerging, aspiring placemaker?
I had someone message me on LinkedIn this morning, actually. How can an aspiring architect, what should they do? And I said, I wrote back and I said, you just have to learn what it is for you that you do. But I think with placemaking, it's different. You have to learn what it is about the community and what they would do. So it's really about spending time there. It's about listening. It's about learning before you actually draw. the worst thing you can do is draw straight away. We try and put that moment off as much as possible.
I think as a designer, it's hard to, when you're young, learn to listen. It's because you have all these
Absolutely,
ideas
yeah,
and
yeah.
you want to give them, but if you don't listen and you don't take in first, the product can be completely
Yeah.
wrong.
And listen to each other as well.
Yeah. And
And the
collaborate.
intuition, and then you iterate on that
As a,
collectively.
as a design structure in the studios, do you design very flat? Everyone at the
Yeah,
table
absolutely.
is equal?
Absolutely, yeah. We expect everyone to have a voice, and we expect ourselves to be able to give that voice to people so that we hear the new ideas. So,
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Big
Thank you.
hand for Mr. Richard Wood.
Thank you.